So let's do an example dealing with the income elasticity of demand. And we're told here that a country has experienced economic growth and its GDP per capita has increased from $45,000 to $65,000 in the last few years. In the same period, the quantity demanded for cars has gone from 300,000 to 480,000 units per year, while quantity demanded for the public transport has gone from 10,000 to 8,200 buses. We have to find the income elasticity of demand for cars and buses and then classify each good. So let's start off with cars. And the income elasticity of demand coefficient, remember it's the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in income. Now I'm going to give this answer here in two different formats. I'm going to show it as a fraction and a decimal. Most textbooks are going to show this as decimals, but just in case you run into this on a test and it's a multiple choice question, maybe the answers will be in fractions so we can get some practice on that sort of algebra here as well. So I'm going to do the work for the numerator and denominator separately. So let's start off with the percentage change in quantity demanded. And as we know, that's basically the change in quantity demanded over the average quantity demanded. So notice that the quantity demanded went from 300,000 to 480,000. So this was the old amount. And then this is the new amount here. So the change in quantity demand is always going to be the new minus the old. So 480,000 minus 300,000. And then the average quantity demanded is going to be the midpoint between those two numbers. So it's basically those two numbers added together divided by 2, like that. So what you would get here is 180,000 in the numerator, and then this here is another fraction, so it's going to be 480,000 plus 300,000, which is 780,000, divided by 2 would give us 390,000. Like that. And then notice that the 4 zeros would cancel out, so if we simplify this fraction, we'll have 18 over 39, and then notice we could divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3, so we would end up with 6 over 13. So again, I'm going to keep it as a fraction now. Again, if your prof says it's going to be in decimals for sure, you can get a decimal value here. Don't round too much because we still have to divide over here. But again, I'm going to keep it as a fraction. So that percentage change in quantity demanded is that 6 over 13. The percentage change in income, so it's going to be here, percentage change in income is going to be the change in income over the average income. And so notice that the income went from 45,000 to 65,000. So this is the old amount, and then this is the new amount. So we'll have 65,000 minus 45,000 in this numerator, which would be 20,000. And then we'll have the average income, which would be both of them added. So we'll have 45,000 plus 65,000 divided by 2. And so we'd end up with 20,000 over 55,000, right? Because 45,000 plus 65,000 will give us 110, divided by 2 gives us 55. Notice that's the midpoint between 45,000 and 65,000. So notice here the 3 zeros would simplify, so we'd end up with 20 over 55, and then this simplifies. We can divide the numerator and denominator by 5, so we'd end up with 4 over 11. So here, this would end up being 4 over 11. So we got one fraction, 6 over 13. divided by another fraction, which is like multiplying by the reciprocal of that fraction. And then you can multiply these, but notice the 4 and the 6, so 2, 3 here. You could do a little simplification there. You'd end up with 33 over 26, whichever way you do it. That would be the simplified fraction. So that's what the income elasticity of demand coefficient is going to be for the cars. And then in decimals, if you want to get the decimal of that, that's just going to be 1.27. Right, so again, usually it's going to be in decimals, but just in case it's in fractions, that's the simplified fraction. Now, with this value, 1.27 here, to classify cars, what type of good is it going to be? Well, notice that because that income elasticity of demand is positive, it is a normal good. And then there's also those subcategories we went over, necessity versus luxury. Necessity being between 0 and 1, and then a luxury being greater than 1. And notice that because it's greater than 1, the subcategory could be that it's a luxury. Right, again, your particular textbook might deal with one or the other or both, but just in case, I put both there. So cars considered a normal good, subcategory of that is a luxury. That is the classification. Now, if we do the same process with the buses or the public transportations, what's actually nice is that that income is the same, right? That percentage change in income is going to be the same. So it's going to be the same denominator as the previous calculation we did for cars. So that denominator is going to be 4 over 11, but the numerator is going to be the same. So doing the calculation for the numerator, so we'll have the percentage change in quantity demanded. This is going to be for the buses. Notice that it went from 10,000, which was the old value, to 8,200, which is the new value. So that quantity demanded went down. So the, let's actually write it, change in quantity demanded over average quantity demanded here. So the change in quantity demanded, new minus old, 8,200 minus 10,000 would give us negative 1,800. That's going to be negative here. And the average quantity demanded would be the 10,000 plus 8,200 divided by 2. And then this here would be negative 1,800 over 18,200 divided by 2, which would be 9,100. Then notice these zeros cancel out, so you'd have negative 18 over 91. And that does not simplify. So that's what the numerator would be in this case. That's a percentage change in quantity demanded. And so what we would have is one fraction, this one, divided by another one, which is like multiplying by the reciprocal of that one. And so here, notice the 4 goes into the 18, so we'll have 2 over here and then 9. Negative 9 times 11 gives us negative 99, and then 91 times 2 would give us, what, 182? And so that's what the answer would be in a fraction format for the income elasticity of demand coefficient for buses. And then in decimals, this would end up being negative 0.54, which is going to be the usual format. All right, so 2 different formats for the income elasticity of demand for buses. Now, because it is negative, what does that mean? What type of good is it? It is an inferior good. And we mentioned in the overview video that usually public transportation will have a negative income elasticity of demand, and it's considered an inferior good in most cases. All right, so the cars, it's a normal good, subcategories, a luxury, and then the buses, it's an inferior good.